Hello everyone and welcome to the Dyslexia Life Hacks Show. I'm your host Matthew Head, and in this episode I'm talking to Eric Cheung. He's the Relationship Officer for the British Dyslexia Association. After graduating from Solent Uni in Southampton, he's worked in business development, working in countries such as the UK, Hong Kong and Singapore. So it's going to be interesting to see what dyslexia seem like in these different locations. As always, I will put links to things we talk about in the show notes, which will be available at dyslexialifehacks.com/podcast. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you very much for inviting me for this show.
No, it's great to have you on. It'd be really interesting to talk to you. So what I thought, seeing as you work for the British Dyslexia Association, I thought you could tell us a little bit more about them.
Well, for starters, they turned 50 this year. It's the 50th anniversary, so big number, big milestone, and lots of celebration involved for this year, I must say. And it's going to be a real thing, as in things have already starting to come into place. We've got the gala dinner award ceremony in June, a few others, just upcoming events. There's just quite a number of bits.
So obviously they're a charity that deal with dyslexia. It tends to be the first place I steer people towards if they want advice of how to make a dyslexia-friendly website, or if they're not sure if they're dyslexic. So how, as an organisation, are they trying to promote the dyslexia message?
It's to be open, and how it is we have the helpline, which is a very unique thing for the BDA, where people of all ages, from students, parents, employers, employees, come and call for help, basically, for like guidance. And we are the best people to actually give the solutions to them. That is the best way forward, really, because obviously you have so much information online these days to say, you should do this, you should do that. But in a way, before even doing this, doing that, give us a call and we'll see what we can do first, just to get an idea what would be best for you in the first place, because you might not have been diagnosed yet, for example. So, of course, you're not even sure, are you dyslexic or not? But at the same time, if you're showing signs and our colleagues kind of catch them, then fantastic. Then we'll tell you to actually go and get an assessment in the first place. Okay.
And what's your role with them? Obviously, relationship officer is kind of quite a vague kind of thing.
Yes, quite a big role itself is quite, the title isn't just a word really, title is a meaning beneath, but it's just to build relationships with all the clients that we have in retrospect. So I look after a lot of different suppliers and accounts, and I basically just keep an eye on them and make sure that we maintain a very strong relationship. Instead of just the usual sales pitch, I'm here to be making more of a holistic approach for them, because I've always believed in a two-way session. In other words, it has to be a win-win. It can't just be a win for us and a loss for the other side and the other team. I need to make sure that it's a balanced win for both sides of the parties when we work together in some respects.
So is that like corporations or is that schools?
A bit of mixture. It could be a mixture. And I've got many. We've got schools in the background as well, and we've got different corporations that we work with and who always want to be our sponsors for some events, or they just want to just do a charitable donation, which we also are very grateful for. And It's been very fun. And I feel that, again, going back to the 50th, it's a milestone, and it's just seen from where it started from such a small thing to becoming such a big thing now that it's huge.
Okay, so that's enough about the British Dyslexia Association for now. What I would like to know is, when did you find out yourself you were dyslexic?
I found out I was dyslexic in my second year of uni, actually. So I was diagnosed quite late, which is a bit sad. I'm not going to lie there. So going to university, it was at Southampton Solent University. I was doing my high national diploma in tourism management. It was actually my lecturer, Lisa Power, very close friend of mine as well now. I can say that she has definitely been a very good mentor to me. Actually just said, Eric, I think, I want you to actually go and get an assessment. I didn't know what it was at the time. She didn't actually tell me it was relating to dyslexia. So it was a bit of a shocker for me. So I just said, I just agreed with her. So, yeah, okay, sure, I'll just go to this assessment thing. No idea what it was about, which was a bit naive of me, I must say. But, normally you just agree with lecturers that tell you stuff and think, I think you should just go and attend this thing. Oh, yeah, sure, I'll go and attend it. Being a student at the end of the day. So attended it, got assessed, got diagnosed, and the lady that assessed me, first questions that came out of her was, how have you survived to get to university? And I was like, What do you mean? They said, no, I'm just curious. How did your journey of getting here, how did you do it? And again, I had no idea what she was on about. So I said, sorry, I'm very confused. I got to university with my grades at GMVQ, Advanced Tourism, Leisure and Tourism, Travel and Tourism.
Right.
And she was just like, no, you know, you've got your dyslexia is quite severe-ish. And I was like, oh, what's dyslexia? This is so it was just like an eye-opener. Like, you're like, all these alarm bells are ringing. So, and then she calmed me down by explaining to me what dyslexia was. And then it clicked back to me. I've heard this word in the past, people saying that, it's either you're dumb, you're thick, a bit stupid, a bit slow, which is a bit sad. And that's the last thing I wanted to be branded as. And it was quite painful. So I was a bit like, oh, geez, I don't want this. And then the lady was calming me down saying, no, it's actually a good thing. And she tried to turn it around and, explain to me that there are other pros with it, but you just have a unique thinking style, which I was a bit like, okay, I feel a little bit better, but not as best as I could be, really. Yeah, so that's when I found out. And then after that, things really did change my mindset and everything. So, with the university helping me with the extra products, dyslexia softwares to assist me to get through uni. Now, that was an eye-opener, which I never thought would be helpful at all. But it also gave me an idea. And it also made me think back about my life, my journey from my GCSE levels, and also just before even SATs, why I never got those right grades. I've always questioned it. As in, I studied hard. I really, really did. And coming from a Chinese family, not saying that they're full-on tiger parents, but they do have expectations. And, I tried really hard, but I was never an A-star student.
So did you get educated in the British education system all your life, or did your family move over when you were younger?
No, I was born and raised in the UK myself. I've been brought up in the Western education from day one. But it was just always something that wasn't clicking for me, sadly. And I never knew what it was. As in, I love reading books, but I just forget half of it quite easily, which is quite sad. That's always the case. So, when at university, when the equipment came through, from a mini disc recorder, for crying out loud, I was doing very retro.
Oh, wow. That's 18 years, isn't it?
And text help, inspiration, just these three basics were more than enough. And the yellow tint, which is the yellow screen, yellow tint, which was super helpful. Everything stopped moving, and it was remarkable for me. So I never knew that. Throughout my whole life, I always saw the words moving, and it was quite scary. And I thought it was normal, actually. Because if everyone, you're telling someone else that is your words, the letters on the paper moving, they're just like, what are you talking about, you freak?
Because that's something I don't have, is the visual stress. Not that I'm aware of, that I don't have the letters dancing. So can you explain a little bit more how that looks to yourself?
It's so. White paper, black ink, for example, some of the letters are floating, as in they're not on the actual paper itself. It's just like maybe an inch or two above the paper, just a few letters. And it's tricking, in a way. I always thought it was tricking my mind, or, I thought I had eye issues to begin with being young. That's why I was like, Mum, Dad, I need to go see an optician to see if there's something wrong with my eyes, because it's freaking me out. But, But the thing is, to them, they can't see what I can see. So in a way, as a parent, they thought I was fibbing. So that didn't help. And they didn't understand that I kept saying to them that, I don't think this is right. But, if it's like if they're constantly telling you that, the paper's white, it's white, even though that I see a different color or something else, you will eventually have to believe them, because, they're your parents at the end of the day, or other people. You're asking for their opinion. Do you see this moving? No, you don't. You're going to have to think, okay, something's wrong. But is it just me, or is it just everyone's messing me around, basically? I don't know.
And so you say it's a yellow screen color that you use to stop that effect?
Yes, that's correct. So for the first time in my second year, I was like, oh God, how old am I? I think I just turned 20 or 21. And everything was just more calmer for me, which was absolutely amazing. So in other words, all the letters were just staying put on the paper. I was like, wow, this is actually amazing. I could actually read a book or read an essay or a report properly now for the first time in my life without having the extra stress on me.
And you find yellow's the best colour, or have you experimented different colours?
The assessor actually experimented with me with many different colours, but yellow was my primal colour, I would say, as in blue would come as a close second, but yellow would be my first choice. So since being diagnosed with dyslexia, all I did was I made sure that when I bought padded papers or even notebooks, had to be yellow inside or creamish colour, just to make sure. But in the event I really can't find it, I'll actually got a yellow tinter, which I actually do have here. It's all everywhere, basically. I keep one everywhere, wherever I am.
For the sake of people who obviously listen to this on audio, Eric's just held up a bit of yellow tinted plastic in front of the screen. Yeah, so that's really interesting, because one thing I found with like an Amazon Kindle or something where the paper's not quite crisp white and it's all backlit and you can change the font, I always found that was a lot nicer to read, and I can never get on with regular books. So do you find tech like that a bit more helpful?
I do, but funny enough, I'm one of those people who still prefers an old school book. I did try and use a Kindle, as in, it's much more environmentally friendly and better in lots of respect, but I just felt a bit more happy holding a book. But I did try a Kindle and it was good. So I could just take it around, go on holiday with it, etc. But it was just something about it that just didn't have that same effect as an actual hard, solid book, I would say. Okay.
And you said you've got something on the screen, your computer screen, to help you as well. Is that like a bit of software that flips the monitors' colours?
Yeah, it's part of the text help, actually, read and write. Yeah. So basically I can just colour filter the whole screen to yellow, which is perfect for me, really.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It's really interesting. I recently just updated the website because I realised that I had black font on white background. And I was reading actually the guide by the British Dyslexia Association how to make websites written word more accessible. I was like, ooh, I need to tweak it. So now it's just an off-white colour with a sort of grey kind of font on it, which even for me, who doesn't suffer too much with that, it's like, this is more comfortable. Now that's really interesting. So you say you got all this assistive tech and you look back on your life and you're like, this all makes sense. And obviously it must have made university a lot more easier after your second year doing all that through.
Yeah, definitely. As in, I was on, at the time from first year, I only got a pass, which is like great. Like most university, everyone says that it's good that you just pass with your 40%, whatever. But to me, I wanted more higher standards. I was looking for more of a merit type. And at the time, before I was even anywhere near that, being diagnosed, I said that you're still on the level pass. And they said you at least try to get your, with this help and support, I managed to get a merit, which I was so proud of. But at the same time, I was a little bit upset because I wanted to jump from year 2 of High National Diploma into the third year degree. That's what my target was. But sadly, because even with a merit, jumping into the third year degree, my lecturer, Lisa, said that you will struggle so much that you'll probably end up dropping out in the third year because it will be super tough. What we strongly recommend you is to take the year 2 degree and then do basically 4 years in uni total. Now, it was more of a financial burden in my head to do that. I didn't really want to go down that road. Plus, all my friends are basically ones that continued on. They jumped into third year. Only very little of them decided to take the second year route. I was a little bit upset. I really was, as in seeing all my friends, and also they graduate year before me as well. So they're gone. And then I graduate the following year. But I'm grateful I did that. I'm grateful I was told to do that, because I think I would have actually just dropped out otherwise. As in, even with the support and help, jumping into the third year, I think it would have been a bit of a suicide, I think, for me, with my level of capability. So, yeah.
Okay. And that was good. It sounded like you had quite a few good people around you from the sort of university side that gave you good guidance through your degree side of it.
Definitely. As in, I'm just super grateful that my lecturer caught on to it, because let's just say she hadn't, I don't know where my life would have ended up, as in how far I would have gone to where I am now if I hadn't been diagnosed at that stage. So, we'll get onto that a little bit about employers, of how it works, and, the scary part of it for most people, whether they say it or say not. But no, definitely, I must say Southampton Solent University gave me that opportunity to diagnose me and to make sure that I got the right support to make sure I passed, or I graduated basically with a degree in honours in tourism management.
Oh, brilliant. So post-graduation, you obviously then decided to go out into the world of work, I guess. What was your next move?
Actually, so this was the funny part. I decided during my final year, there was a, how would you call it? Yes, a grant, that was it. So basically they were pitching for anyone who wanted to do an entrepreneurship on their own, but obviously during university. So I thought, I'm in my final year, this is a bit risky, but I decided I wanted to go into the event industry. Now, that was quite a bold move, I would say. Now, but it was related to tourism management, to my view. It's a little small aspect of it. My friend and I, Sylvester Mido, we both come from very different backgrounds. We enjoyed our uni lives. We enjoyed dancing. We enjoyed going clubbing like any other student would. But what made it remarkable was we made extra cash. This is, we met from clubbing and dancing as a good mate, as a partner as well in the game. But what made it unique was we started it off by handing out flyers. Now, this is quite going backwards now, during university breaks, there's always people standing around giving flyers out to people at the breaks. And that's how it started. And it's like, this is just extra cash for me in my second and third year at uni. So 4 years total, I've been uni. So in my second and third year, I was just basically handing out flyers. And I attended those events and realized, so they, as a thank you, that instead of giving me much cash, they always gave me drinks, which I always welcomed, of course, because that's like remarkable, free alcohol.
Yeah. Student 101, we pay them in booze. Yeah,
and it was fantastic. As in, I didn't have to get money out of my pocket. This is just like, here's some drinks vouchers, enjoy. I'm like, oh my God, there's like 10 vouchers that you can just, that's 10 drinks like that. It's amazing.
Were you maximising the alcohol content?
A little bit. I wouldn't say no to it, definitely. But it was just remarkable. But I attended these events, and both him and I saw that there was a market missing, and it was the international students. They would never go out.
Yes.
The Europeans, the Asian market, none of them wanted to go out because, there was not that whole mix and match still, I felt. As in, they're away from home, the culture is different and everything. And we saw that as a market, and we decided, should we take advantage of this? As in, let's see if we can do our own event first, just to test the water, just to see it first. So we approached many clubs that every club already had a fixed night, but we decided to go on the nights that were like the dead nights, we called it. So in other words, even though they open, there's no one going there except it's an empty. So you might as well just give. And basically, I pitched to them saying, I'm going to bring you X amount of people. Can you give me the venue for a good price, or give it to me for free, actually, because you're going to get revenue from the bar. And we just did it one event just for a joke, just to test the water, as both of us had student loans. So we decided, let's just chip in together on this, make some posters, make some flyers, get the word out, and let's see how it goes. And it was so popular and don't forget, we didn't research, as in like do data research. We literally just saw that there was a market in the niche that needed to be done, because these students weren't doing anything at the time. They really weren't. They'd just rather be at home, or they were trying to find their own people type. The French were looking for the French, German looking for the German, Chinese were looking for the Chinese. They wanted to be in their own little gangs, which is fully understandable because you're coming to another country. And I think it's understandable for communication reasons. And at the same time, it's an opportunity to learn the British culture in some respects as well, people.
Mm-hmm.
And after that one success, that's when the head was like, okay, maybe we need to try and get revenue somewhere else. And that's when this grant came up, and I decided to pitch for it.
Okay.
And this was in my last year of uni. So I'm trying to balance both work and my education. And I thought this was very risky, but at the same time, I want it because I got such a rush from doing that first night. I wanted to do more. And my friend Sylvester Mido, he was a graphic designer. So he had nothing to do with events in his background, but he enjoyed doing this type of stuff as well, as in especially the design work behind it and actually the execution of the night. And we just thought, let's just work as a partner and a team on this. I love it. We both have our agrees, we both have our disagrees, but that's how we balance it out as a yin and yang, I say, as a little duo. That's what really that's what lifted me into this industry, really. So during uni and after uni, I decided to continue this journey as an entrepreneur. The company was actually called Unowned Production.
Okay.
It was very random. a lot of people were like, what does that mean? I was like, there's no meaning. We just decided to call it. So nobody owns us. Just a little slang term, being a uni student, you just make something up. I'm like, yeah, this will do.
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
And then later on down the line, we found out it's actually a Pokemon name. So it was kind of funny there. But, we just went along with it. But events got bigger, and we did monthly events at Southampton to begin with. And then we ended up doing it in Portsmouth, in Bournemouth. And we just built a reputation that we've got to attend Eric and Sylvester or Sly for Short's events because they're that damn awesome. And I was just remarkable. I was just so happy that, the clienteles we got were mainly internationals, but eventually it branched out to the local students as well.
Okay. So you actually had the creative spark was getting the international students together to show them what clubbing and events are in the UK like, to get them all to mix. And you managed to then expand it to just nights that all the students wanted to attend. Was it always based in the Southampton area?
That's the heart of it, I would say, because we knew most of the venues and we're a bit more closer to them. So Southampton was the main hub. But when we had opportunities to branch out, I say the word branch out, but just extend further out, we just took advantage of it because we were recommended by other clubs to say, you need to get Eric and Sylvester into this because they know what they're doing, as in they're rolling with it now and it's something to do. Now, as we got bigger and better, obviously my mindset changed a bit because now I didn't want to just take like the money of the entrance fee. I wanted a little bit more now. As in, some people say, this is when me and Sylvester had our little arguments saying that I got a bit greedy, but then I thought, I didn't look at it as greedy. I looked at it as business because you weren't going to make any, if a bar wasn't going to be making any revenue that night anymore, it would make a very small amount, but I'm bringing you an extra 100 to 200 people. I just want a simple cut, and I'm not going to turn around and go, I want 50%. I'm just going to be generous and maybe ask 5 to 10%, which I think is reasonable. This is all negotiation skills now that I'm learning on my own as we go along. Obviously, a lot of people just said, you got to be kidding. That's okay. we shake hands and move along, really.
Yeah. That's really interesting. How did you attract the international students to your event? Because the Creative Spark was there as a niche for this. What did you actually do to manage to get them in?
To actually meet them, to actually talk to them. As in, we went to a few of their socials, which were just mainly at someone's house or at the university, little get-together and gatherings. And we just chatted to them saying what they're up to this weekend or what they're up to for this, and just know that they want to meet people, but they don't know how to. Not saying they don't, meeting these socials are great, but they want to have a bit of fun as well and a bit of alcohol. So, all right, how about I do a venue then? And do you guys want to check it out? And they're like, are you serious? I'm yeah. So there was one event I decided to do on Freshers Week where I didn't charge entrance. I just decided I wanted just a bar take percentage, and it was a hit. And they were the owners of the club were just shocked that it worked. And I said, well, you just talk to people. And then when it comes to handing out flyers, that was more of a challenging thing because obviously you need to know where the international students are located because they're in different halls to the local students, some of them, for some reason. I've never understood that. I thought they're supposed to mingle together. But they were in different halls for some reason. So getting in is probably, I don't know if you remember this. Did you go to university? Sorry, Matthew.
I did go to university, yes.
Okay. Yes. Do you remember the times when it was just hard to get into someone else's accommodation? You have to wait for someone to open the door at the very bottom so that you can just sneak in quickly.
Yes.
That's exactly what I had to do with Sylvester. Right? We just had to wait for someone to open the door. And then we'd go in, we'd drop some flyers, or we'd put the flyers under everyone's doors. Yes, it was littering in some ways, but it made the impact back then, of course, because there was no such thing as good social media back then. Word of mouth was one of the most important things. And being able to pitch less than 10 seconds about the event is even more important. And that's your only way of drawing these people to come along. You need to get the vibe going. You need people to talk and rah-rah about it. And once that happened, and obviously game night, you're hoping that everyone turns up. But then there have been times when it was a low turnout, which obviously I'm dead upset because you're just like, what happened? All right, back to the drawing board. What happened? Let's chat it. Let's discuss it and have a see what went wrong. What can we do better for next time?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, and that's quite cool. You just dived on the entrepreneur train and went for it. Now, obviously, you don't still do events in nightclubs for students?
No, I moved on from that. So it was remarkable because from there on, it's hard to... Now, this is where it got a bit harder. So what do you call yourself that you're an entrepreneur? And how do you actually tell your next boss or your next employer that you want to work for them, but you've been your own boss? At that time, back in the 2000s, people's mindset were very hard, and it was very annoying because when I said that I was partner of or CEO, nobody believed me, and it was super difficult. So before that, I already told Sylvester that I wanted to go and learn more, gain more experience by looking for working for an actual event agency or company. And he said, no problem at all. He wanted to continue an own production, which I said, no problem at all. You continue it and treat it as your baby. But I was job hunting like mad, but no one was willing to give me that opportunity because I was to a lot of people. And I remember one of the interviewers turned around to me and said I was just a young punk, which I was a bit upset by that, thinking, young punk, as in, but I've done all this. I've made this amount of money being a student. It's not like it's not like I just, went back to the silver spoon to get money for my parents or anything like that.
Yeah.
But, so in the end, I decided in my head, right, if that's the case, I'm going to drop my title to project, hoping that might help a little bit. It still didn't. So I dropped it down to another smaller title, to just event coordinator, just to get people interested in me. And finally someone bit, and it was Sparshall College. There was a little small organisation inside called the Wessex Conference Centre, which is now no longer there. So now they're now known as Sparshall College Conference Centre. I went in as a events coordinator for events and weddings, which I didn't expect to touch, but it was part of the role, and I thought I might as well do it.
Different to student nights at a nightclub, isn't it? Weddings, yeah.
Completely. The whole thing was different, but the basics of events was still there, as in how to run it by asking the right questions of what your target audience is, who the target audience is, all the main foundation stuff of running a function is there. And while at Sparshall, this is like being my first organisation, company or school I worked for, I didn't actually disclose I was dyslexic.
Okay, yes, something I was going to come on to, yeah.
Yes, so something I've completely forgot that I didn't really share much about of dyslexia, of how it's been helping me. It's just the creativity behind it. So just going backwards with my own production, I think it was just that creativity and spark that made me who I am and what I could think of outside the box. Just to wrap up with an own production, one of my best nights, which was to finish off, as in my departure as well, we decided to do a cosplay night. And that was basically everyone dressed up as anime or cartoon characters or film characters. It was a large hit. And that was to end everything for me. And I was just happy with it. I think I've got a picture somewhere. I dressed up as the character of Gintama, an anime character. It was just fantastic. So it was fun. That was that. So then moving back over quickly to Sparshall College, I didn't announce to them that I was dyslexic because, again, I didn't feel the need to. But when I think I was about 6 months, after I passed probation, which I nearly struggled on because I got questioned about it, saying, your work style is getting a bit edgy. What's happened? And then, I didn't quite get it. What was edgy? Basically, I just wasn't doing the right job. I just wasn't doing my job properly. I was missing very small stuff.
Okay.
It was a bit annoying, and I didn't know what to do about it. But they said that they're going to pass my probation because we can tell that you really do work hard. But then I continued struggling for another 2 more months, and I just said, "Oh Jesus, I can't do this anymore." And in my head, it was something that I didn't want to tell them, but I felt ashamed at the same time. But in the end, I had to because I said, "No, I can't do this anymore." I said, "Guys, I'm actually dyslexic and I think I need some help from you." I got taken aside by my boss just to have a chat. She was like, "Okay, how can we help you?" And I said, "Really?" They're like, "Yeah, how can we help you? We want to make sure you can do your job better," which was a turning to me because I thought they're going to fire me. They're going to sack me because I told them that. And no, they've turned it and said, "No, we want to help you with it. What do you need?" And I said, "Well, this is what I did during university. I don't know what it's going to be like now." And then they're the ones that actually turned around and said, "Actually, you know what? Why don't you get yourself reassessed as an adult this time, not as a student? Because your dyslexia softwares and all that might not be working for you at a job because it's different roles and everything. And I was like, okay, your mindset's different now. It's no longer a student mindset. It's a working employee mindset. So they basically put me in an assessment. Then I had a great lecturer, a great assessor who became my trainer as well. She found out I was actually dyscalculic as well, not just dyslexic.
Oh, wow. So okay.
I didn't know that at first, but then again, the stars aligned, and then I realized actually I was always quite bad with maths, and it was quite a bit ironic being Asian and not knowing maths very well. So anyway, I was laughing at the time. The stereotype is true. Not everyone does know maths, just FYI.
Okay, yes, yeah, fair enough.
And no, then I got the training from her to basically she assessed my working condition of how my desk looked, how the computer is, the phones, where my paperwork is. And we basically just dived right in. And then she literally shadowed me for a whole week and then wrote a report of how to accommodate me to do better at my role. And then it blimmin' well did. It really made an impact.
That's really good, actually. So how did you find, not necessarily how the assessment was, but what did they pull out of the assessment that was different to what you needed at uni to make a big impact in improving your job and working style?
It was actually the fact that the working style was literally the assessor who basically shadowed my work saw what my job was, my routine, literally day in, day out, from Monday to Friday, 9 till 5 finish. So she saw exactly where my body, my twists and turns of what I'm looking for, how I'm picking up the phone, how I'm writing, where my notepads are. They were the start off of how they rearranged everything to make it suitable for me. That was the start off point. Secondly, they saw how, even an average Joe can do this, but, before the end of the day, write down all the stuff you need to do for tomorrow and put it in a to-do list straight away. I know it sounds very simple that everyone else does it, but I don't believe that is the case these days. They put it in a to-do list, then the next day, and then mark them that, which is the most important ones that you need to attend to first, and then secondly, and then thirdly, basically, what's next. Have that ready. So then the next day when you come into work, your brain is a bit more calmer. You're ready to tackle everything much smoother. So that was the first thing that made a big impact. So that instead of me I don't know what to touch next, I don't know what to do next, which file should I be picking up? Now I know which is important, that I have to put it in a nice order, basically.
Yes. So do you find, I find when I'm at work, I need to win the sort of 8 till 10:30 morning coffee time part of the day. And if I've done that, I'm rolling for the rest of the day. But if I'm distracted for that bit, the rest of the day kind of is going off. So I guess the to-do list then gets you back into that mode. You trapped everything on paper at the end of the previous day, so it's not on your mind all night. But then you get to your desk, computer on, task number 1, or whichever one is highlighted, and go. And that really helps you with the focus, right?
Completely. It made me know exactly what I needed to focus on and not be distracted with all these other stuff and priorities that are just as important, but they're not on the main things I need to do that day. As in, that can still wait maybe another day, or it can be done later in the afternoon. So my mind isn't all crazied up thinking everything is important, which it is, of course. It always is the case. So hence now that everything's a bit more priority, then I can sort of assess, right, do this first, sorted, next. Go and do this now. Okay, done, next. Breathe.
I imagine you still do that technique to this day, right?
I do, and it's just been improving every time. As in, I've made it we're using mind maps I've used from inspiration to mind view. They've all come in different ways, and there's different ways of even putting it in color coordination, from green as a go to orange as a hold and red as an amber. Don't do anything of this yet. It's just my own way of creating it, of what works for me, basically. Of course, there's a lot of trial and errors that I tried in the past to make it easy, because paper, you can only go so far, because if it goes missing, then you're a bit screwed for the rest of the day, really.
Yes, yep. I've always got a ringed notepad, because it has to be ringed for some reason, with a Parker pen put down the side of it, and that is right outside the desk all the time. So, as well as the to-do list and making notes and prioritizing things, what else did that assessment show you that you weren't aware from your university assessment?
The more on the thinking side as well. So for example, the mind mapping back in uni was just like basically doing report writing. Just have an idea, here's a subheading, another subheading, and then branches it out. Whereas this style, as a worker, as an employee, you've got to think even more broader now. It's similar, but a little bit different as well. So you've got your main topic. Then you've got to basically, depending on, like, for example, the event itself, it's making a template as well, you could say. So instead of, because they had a template, but it just wasn't very user friendly. So the template for me, I created was like the title of the event. How many people should there be? What time is the event from until? How many breaks are they having? Those are the basic stuff. And then when it comes to like the breaks, during the breaks, what items of snack are they having? 3 choices each time. And then also lunch, what are they having? So it's just stuff like that. And also the finance part of the breakdown, very important to know how much the company is making for this event particular at the end of the day. And that's where my dyscalculia kicked in, where I wasn't as good with it because for some reason my digits were always off by 1 or 2 digits, which can make a huge impact on the final bill. Mm-hmm. And, yeah. I've been caught out a few times where it was under, which threw my bosses off guard. But whenever it was over, they never said anything, which was remarkable, obviously.
Funny that, isn't it?
So, I obviously I still had to return the money because finance picked it up and they're like, Eric, I think you overcharged these people. Oh, I'm really sorry. Let me, tell them and we'll send them a check. So,
yes. Okay. That's fascinating. It's really interesting to hear about reading and quite good to highlight the difference between being assessed to optimize yourself and how your dyslexia is for university to pass a degree versus optimizing for the world of work and being an employee of an organization. It's fascinating hearing the change between the two. Something I would like to move on to is your time in Hong Kong and Singapore. Now, they are obviously very, very different to the UK. What triggered you to move over to that area of the world in the first place?
It was actually a dare. And it was the best part of my life. It was a dare so basically, this is what happened. I was originally supposed to leave in 2008. I had the opportunity of leaving England to move to Singapore in 2008, but I kind of wimped out because I just wasn't ready, and I was a bit scared as well because it's quite a big move to like move your life and everything over to the other side of the world. But I kind of regret I didn't, and because reason being at the time I was very comfortable in my comfort zone with the Sparshot College. I didn't want to move, and but I had a cousin Pete. Sadly, he's passed away now, but he's been like my big brother to me. And he literally dared me to move over to Singapore. And you're like, what? It was like, yeah, what have you got to lose? He kept telling me that. What have you got to lose? You're not happy in your current job. You've got no more ladders to climb because your manager isn't going to be leaving anytime soon. And you feel that you can't grow there. So it's time to go. So after seeing the crash in 2010 in America, I sort of did a calculative guess in my head thinking it's going to happen to UK in 2011 anyway, which it did. I managed to escape just before. So after 3.5 years at Sparshot, I decided to hand my notice in. But what changed in a little bit in a funny way was they wanted me back. They didn't want me to leave. And they offered me more money. Nice. They offered me a higher title. And they even offered me a better pension scheme, which these were all individual times. It all wasn't a one shot, but it just showed how much they wanted me back, which I was so touched by. But I told them up front that it was got nothing to do with money or any of this anymore.
No.
I think
a very good highlight also how you turned it around, struggling through your probation, then getting the right tools and assessment in to turning around to something they don't want you to leave.
Correct, yes. So then, 2011 came. I packed my bags and moved in April, I believe, off the top of my head, with this wonderful new life I was starting from scratch, which was daunting. Just one suitcase and a laptop bag. Completely different. New. The whole thing was just brand new to me, as in there was nothing to say. But At the time, I was super scared, as in, again, no job, no nothing. So I didn't even know where to start. So I did a temp role at a recruitment agency just to start things off with, because I wanted to see if my CV was going to be good enough for what it is over there. And it's the complete opposite of what you'd ever expect. So
okay,
you need a profile picture on your CV. You need to show your date of birth.
Yes.
And obviously you need to say what your residence is, as in that you're an expat, a local, etc. All this stuff you would never need to do if you were in the UK, which was a bit of a culture shock for me. Completely.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think they take disability very highly over there. That's just me, though.
Okay.
So when I got to understand a bit more about the role in recruitment, I did ask that person when I said, I'm dyslexic. Can you help me? I didn't get that same assistance or help like I did back in UK at Sparshot College. It was more like, oh God, don't tell anyone, Eric. Otherwise, they're going to look down on you, or they're going to look at it differently. They'll look at you differently. And then I was like, oh, crikey, Jesus. I didn't know how to react. I was just like,
wow, that's a shocker, isn't it?
a stunner.
Yeah.
And then I told my cousin Pete, and he was aware of it anyway. And he just said, mate, it's okay. You're going to learn to deal with it. I promise you. You've already got this far in life, and you've always managed it. You will be able to manage it again. I believe in you. And I was like, thank you. Okay, right. So great words of wisdom, I say. Very short but sweet and straight to the point. So eventually I landed my job with St. Regis Hotel.
Yes.
Five-star luxury hotel. And again, I struggled at the very beginning, but I managed to get all the softwares that I needed just to make sure that I could get by or get through my daily activities.
Would you be speaking a different language as well?
No, luckily I was very fortunate. Singapore itself is an English, this language is English actually. First, one of their languages is English. Majority of people are spoken as English.
Oh, so because it's sort of English and Mandarin, isn't it?
Yes, correct. Yeah. And then there's Malay, and then there's Hokkien. There's so many other dialects. It's amazing. Right. But English is the main priority spoken language, so I got away with it quite easy. But they've got their accent of, they call it Singlish. I'm not going to do any accents today, but it's just different is the best way of describing it.
Yes.
And you just got to get with their culture and tones. And sometimes it's like shortened English, or sometimes I call it lazy English personally. It's like they've got a thing they love to say, can. And I'm like, what? Can what? Like to them, can means, can you do it or not? So I was like, so it's just been shortened in a way. You're like, can't you just say the sentence?
Yes.
And then there was like, then their answer is cannot. And I'm like, that's just lazy English to me. But never mind. If it works for them, because what's important in Asia, what I've noticed is everything has to be done quickly. So, time is an essence. So I can understand that. If you look at it in the business world, you want straightforward answers, then can, cannot, done. That's your answer.
Yeah. But, not please can you, blah, 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 but all the
English. There's no please. It's just, can you get on with it? It's just literally can you get on with it. So I struggled like mad, but I managed to just scrape by at St. Regis, and eventually it just wasn't working for me anymore, as in I was doing stupid hours. It wasn't just a simple 9 till 5 job. It was 9 till 7, 9 till 8, even 9 till 9 sometimes.
Wow. Okay.
You're not expected to work those hours, but because if you can't keep up with the work pattern or the work pile, you will fall behind so badly the next day or the following day that you are just going to drown.
Oh, I see. Yes.
So I just, and being dyslexic, I don't think that was very healthy for me either, that I was properly burning stuff in my head, burning my body to both sides of the candlestick.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got to the point where my body just shut down and go, you know what? F you, Eric. It's time to just stop now. You can't do this anymore. And I think that's when I went a bit downhill with my career at St. Regis, that I just didn't have as much fun as in that when you roll out of bed in the morning and it just wasn't fun. That was it. You're just not ready to go. But I was very fortunate. I took a good 1 month break and networked around. And just before that, I was just very lucky that I hit the right people, and Shangri-La were looking for someone. They happened to be looking for preferably someone who had experience with English people. And I was like, perfect candidate right there.
Yeah.
So I saw it, I applied for it, and then I realized they're actually looking for someone local, preferably. But then I said to them, that was my boss, her name's Chanel, great name. And I told her that, you won't regret hiring me, even though that, you're looking for someone who's British, but also that can look after the local market as well. I think that you've got best of both worlds.
Yeah. And
she took a real big chance on me. And I think there's no regrets on that, because I ended up staying with the Shangri-La group for 5 years, doing that I started off as an event assistant and then got promoted to event manager. So,
nice. So now you're in a job that you clearly were thriving in. Did you disclose your dyslexia to them at that point, or did you keep it quiet because it's just a general culture thing?
Again, I kept it quiet a little bit because it was just uneasy to tell. Over there, you face a very big thing and you don't want to show any weaknesses in you, because people can really turn that weakness against you, I've noticed.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In different aspects. Not saying that it's a bad thing, or, it's just a culture thing of how it works. You don't want to look weak, I think. And because I got into that routine, I didn't want to look weak. So I said to myself, okay, I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to go with what Pete told me. I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to manage it my own ways, which I did. And I just made sure that was what it's going to be. But I did mention it to my direct supervisor, Rachel, and she said, I don't see anything of your dyslexia, Eric. And I'm actually you've actually managed it quite well. And I was like, what do you mean by quite well? Does that mean not good enough? Like, no, because I've seen you do your work, and I've seen that you've already got templates in place. I see that you've already got your, to-do list in place. I see that the first couple of months was just you learning the role and getting a feel for it, but you've managed to implement stuff into place that we wouldn't normally do because it's doubling our job. But for you, if it's helping you do your job, even though it's double the amount of work, it still gives the same result. We don't care. We don't mind. Just do as you can. But if you really are struggling, put your hand up. We are always a team helping each other. And that's what thrives off me most. The fact that it doesn't even matter if I was disabled, dyslexic, dyscalculate, anything. We work as a team no matter what. And, there are nights that we did work a little bit later than usual, but we all kept together. Some of us would actually go dabao, which is get a takeaway for everyone, which was good. And that just kept the spirit going. And I thought, actually, you know what? I actually at one point even forgot I was dyslexic, because I already managed to put everything into place that everyone can just understand my work, basically, of what I'm doing. So we have a system that if we ever take leave, we need to know exactly, pass it over to your partner, basically, to understand exactly what everything is. I would always make sure that everything is flawless, no matter what. If I do a handover, and in the event that it's anything's unclear, tell me now, obviously, before I leave. But then the event you really need to call me, then call me. But otherwise, don't disturb, which they're very grateful. And I'm super good that they never did. And vice versa. Yeah. So I think that by that time being there, it worked. Everything was in place already. So I've kind of forgotten that dyslexia was even a thing, because I've put all the method and templates into place. So I've even, to me, it's second nature. So I don't even think of it as a negative anymore, if that makes sense.
Yes, I think it's kind of also it's a bit of a dyslexic thing, isn't it? Like we mentioned about creative and problem solving, is that actually it's what you tend to do. And I do similar things with stuff at my work. So you end up templating things out. So you grab this thing and then just fill the bits in rather than having to start from scratch all the time. And it's kind of, you find your own route through some things.
Correct. Yes, that's exactly it. Yes.
Okay. So you spent quite a lot of time in Singapore, and then did you move to Hong Kong?
Yes. So I did 4 years with the Shangri-La, and then I was getting bored as well, actually. And I wanted to explore, and word got out that I was going to leave the group. And, just a quick shout out to my general manager at the time, Mr. Ben Bosnina. I call him Mr. B because he was an awesome guy. And also he took a chance on me as well. He was a French GM at Shangri-La and very accommodating, understood that, you're a bit more unique than all the other people. The fact that you can speak, English and Chinese, but you've got a Western mindset, but you've got in a Chinese body, you know, everyone's going to be always like, oh my God, what's this? You've got to go to international school. Who are you? So it was always fun that way. And I was always upfront to him about everything, and I worked very well. He knew I was dyslexic as well. I was upfront to him from day one, and he just said, don't worry about it. I'm sure you'll be able to manage, but if you've got any issues, please give me a knock on the door. And I welcomed it, and I did occasionally for different sorts of help, but nothing to do with dyslexia personally. But because he would always, if I found something too struggling, he would always put something in place, a plan for me, which was good. Same goes for my director of event management, Chanel. They would put something in place for me to make sure that I would learn something in a more easier way. So that if I needed to relearn some skills in a specific area in hotel, they'll put me on the course, and then she'll say, if you need to disclose you're dyslexic, just tell them that, and then they'll have to accommodate you. I said, okay, done. So that was pretty good. So yeah, I was going to leave Shangri-La. So word got out, and my GM himself actually said, why don't you stay with the group, but try a different country? And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I never thought I could do that. I said, yeah, we can do an internal transfer. Where would you like to go? And I thought, well, my motherland's Hong Kong. My parents from Hong Kong. I'd like to try Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And he was like, sure. Is there a post there, do you know? I said, at the moment, no. I don't see any things posted there job-wise. And he was like, okay. When you see something, tell me. And I was like, well, I don't really want to wait because I want to try something else. I don't know what happened. A job magically appeared, basically, after that conversation, which took me by surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where things got like, wow, this is the go time now, basically. This is go time. So I gave it one. So I moved to Hong Kong, started another new career, continued as an event manager, and I had the same issues again. Not being able to, shouldn't be disclosing I was dyslexic was a bit of a knock on for me for this side of Shangri-La now, which I was a bit like, oh, okay. You know, you get looked down upon, you get frowned upon. I was a bit like, oh, so I just felt like the whole thing got deja vu of what happened back at St. Regis.
Yeah.
So I ended up working there for 1 year, and it was chaotic because I wasn't given the support that I needed personally. Even when I disclosed to them, they just said, you know, just do your job, which was a bit upsetting because I didn't get the right support to make sure that I could, you know, thrive on the job and get better at it.
Is that the same as like when you were mentioning Singapore about not showing weakness? Is that a similar thing that happens over in Hong Kong culture, or is it very different thing?
Bit. I feel it is in a way, as in it's not something that anyone really wants to like brag about and use it as an advantage or disadvantage personally, but people do look at you differently. I don't know. It's just something I've never understood personally, but even like myself, in the end, I just decided I'm just going to keep it to myself, but I wasn't happy anyway. As in, it got to that point where I ended up in Hong Kong only for 1 year. I just said, right, I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to move back to the UK now. But during that period, actually, before I forget, I managed to be in contact with the Hong Kong Dyslexia Association, and I met a few teachers along the ways, and they kind of brought me back up again.
Brilliant.
They picked me back up to say that, you know, you're still a unique person, and we know that it is very challenging in Asia specifically that to bring up dyslexia. And I thought, oh, wow, you guys understand me. But
yeah.
At the same time, Eric, do you think you can do some talks with parents and children? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that because I believe in it. I really do, because I know a lot of Asian parents are very like, oh, you know, no, this is not possible. So I decided to have a chat with a few parents and a few children and just explain to them that I'm also dyslexic, but I managed to graduate. I managed to work in UK. I managed to work in Singapore, and now I'm in Hong Kong. You will do it. It's just about having templates, having everything in place in a way that you can manage it. Just managing your employer's expectation and also managing your own expectation, because being dyslexic, one of the scariest things is when you are down, you can be very down and you can shoot yourself even worse than before. That's the worst thing I found being dyslexic. You can't get away with it, sadly. So when you're down, you'll always question yourself. It's those inner critics. Yeah. I found it's more severe than a normal person would have, because a normal person, or just average Joe, I call them, make it easier, they can just shove it off and go, never mind, sod's law, we get on with it. But for me, being dyslexic, I'm actually like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? How could I have done this? I will put myself down in the horrible way by talking myself down and be so down. It'd take me over a good 1 day to recover.
God, right, yes, yeah.
So it was tough. So then, so I left, well, just as I was leaving Shangri-La Group, I was offered to go for an interview back in Singapore for a job in MCI Group as an event agency. And I thought, really? They're like, I'm about to go home. I said, I'm ready to move back to the UK. They're like, no, let's come and meet us for a cup of coffee. I said, it's a bit of an expensive trip just to go over to Singapore.
Yeah, it's not 10 minutes down the road, is it?
No, make it worth your while and just pop over. I was like, okay, so I decided to go over, and so I saw my cousins as well, and we had a chat. And the next thing you know is the person that recommended me liked me a lot, and then they said, we'd like you for the second interview, but I said I'm already leaving back to Singapore, so it's going to have to be via Skype, which was good. And I met the CEO for MCI and hit it off. And the next thing you know, they said, we want you. Oh, okay.
Excellent.
So what happens now then? They're like, oh, you need to move back to Singapore. I was like, oh gosh. So this time I decided, right, I've got the job already. I'm gonna test the water and see what happens. But before I do that, I decided to reach out to the Dyslexia of Singapore Dyslexia Association. I decided I wanted to reach out to them and ask them for some advice.
Yes.
I met a lady called Deborah who became my mentor as well there, and just said that, it's no problem disclosing it. It actually will help, and I'll even back you up if you need me to. And it was like, that was full on support from her telling me
brilliant.
that.
Yeah.
So I decided, MCI, by the way, just to let you know, I'm actually dyslexic. After I signed the contract, of course, to make sure that nothing backfires. But again, having that random fear as well, it was always there though. You're thinking, do I tell them before I sign or after I sign? You just want to be a bit careful that they don't just make an excuse just to drop you at the last second, basically.
Yeah. It is tricky, isn't it? And you do wonder. Like, I always made sure I'd sign the contract or filled it in on the bit, the new starter form in the UK where it's like any disability dyslexia. But it's a bit tricky now when they read my CV.
Well, yeah, likewise as well. And I've made it obvious, and I'm not that ashamed of it anymore. And I feel that if you like me as I am with what it says on my CV, then have a chat with me to make the difference. It makes such a remarkable difference. I know that, competition is so high these days in the job market. So I fully understand people that are like, oh God, like straight away when I tick I'm just in the disabled box with dyslexia or neurodiversity, and then I get rejected for the job before I even get an opportunity to speak to these people. I'm just like, oh God, is it because I ticked dyslexic? You question yourself all the time.
You do, yes, you do, yeah.
That's the sad part. But no, I'm happy I told them that I was dyslexic. So now I already had the support in place with MCI, and people understood. Actually, no, to be honest, colleagues didn't understand what dyslexia was again, so I had to educate them. And my friend, mentor, Deborah, actually said, I can do a talk for them if you want as well. I was like, fantastic. But because the pace is so fast, we just never got around to it because everyone's always working. I thought it would make my life a little bit easier, but it didn't. But in the end, again, I just managed it myself with putting stuff into place from what I've done in the past. Once I knew the role in my own way, I knew exactly what type of templates and what style I needed to get me through day by day, basically. So again, you end up managing yourself somehow, some way.
You do,
thinking.
By this point, you're an experienced dyslexic employee in the workplace, and you know it does and doesn't work for you, and you pick up new tricks and tips and hacks along the way that you try to test out. As you've been saying, you road tested different things, and I imagine you still do that to this day. You try different bits and pieces to get things to work.
Correct.
You mentioned being in touch with both the Hong Kong and Singapore Dyslexia Association. Is there much difference between how they teach dyslexic people over there versus how they do in the UK?
Slight difference only because obviously in Hong Kong you've got the Chinese characters to the English. It's completely different there. But I think overall is similar, but a little bit different as well, just in general, because everyone will still come back to the originators of the British Dyslexia Association, because they need to go back and get referrals to understand exactly how they can do it. Because obviously they've done it their own way, because especially with the characters being very different to the English dictionary.
Yes, so very much.
I can't say on their behalf because I can't actually read Chinese. I can read my name, I can write my name, but I can't actually read an actual Chinese, sadly.
Okay.
So that's also a thing for me. But from what I can see, it is a little bit similar and a little bit tiny different as well from how it is.
So you eventually then moved back to the UK after all this experience of working in Asia. Did it really inform how you would then interact and work back in the UK?
Well, it was a tough one. Now, and I'll say this on the podcast because it's actually quite important. I decided to test the water with 2 different CVs. And
you did a bit of A/B testing, right?
Basically, I did. I decided to put one being dyslexic and the other one not being dyslexic, obviously different names.
Mm-hmm.
And shockingly enough, the person that wasn't dyslexic got the interview, which I was absolutely shocked of.
Oh dear!
I won't mention which company because there's no need for that.
No, there's no need.
I feel that I attended the interview. I think that was the most important thing, and I wanted to get an idea exactly why, but I didn't let them know until the end. As in, by the way, just give you a heads up. There was, I know you've gone through. Did you read? I actually challenged them. I said, "Did you read for everyone's CV?" Like, yes, we did. Oh, okay, that's interesting to know. Don't suppose you recall this other person, do you? They're like, and that person did, the interviewer said, that rings a bell. And I was like, yeah, just FYI, that's actually me as well, but a different name. And
was it Derek by any chance?
No, it wasn't actually. I wanted to actually, but then I decided not to. I thought it would be too obvious if that was the case. And I think they started getting a bit panicky, thinking, well, actually, no, they didn't panic. They looked at me and go, why would you do that? I said, oh, because that other CV basically says that I was dyslexic and the application. So it just went silent afterwards. And in my head, I didn't really care if I got the job offer or not. I was actually a bit upset the fact that they couldn't answer me on the spot, which I expected. At the same time, I just didn't want to work for a company who wouldn't actually accept neurodiverse people, wouldn't be able to learn, wouldn't be able to manage me. I think that's something that I've learned throughout my career, from going from UK to Asia and back to UK again, is for me, it's all about having the right leader that can manage me best, knowing my strong suits. Now, this is where I say that what I've learned is very important. Is I've got to be able to click with my boss, basically, no matter what. They've got to be able to manage me. Now, it sounds like a mouthful, but not really. But if you're able to manage me and groom me, it gives me an opportunity to also groom my next in line, basically, so as in my coordinator or my executives. Because I've got a way of thinking that I need to always learn how my boss does their job. So one day that I can push my boss's job up so he can push themselves up. So in other words, my boss can go for a higher role. I can take her role or his role. Then I can take my minion's role to take my role. That's something I've always enjoyed doing. And it never changes. But having someone to be able to understand what dyslexia is as a leader is a big deal, because once they understand it, then they understand that they need to know how to manage you better, because you are going to have those downsides of you. You're going to be like really like that. You need to know how that person will be able to pick you up as a leader and go, never mind, Eric, just brush it off, you'll get on with it. It's like, yeah, true. Or just even a pat on the back, never mind, you made a mistake, life goes on, we'll do it again tomorrow. Just something as little as that can make a big difference. It really, really can.
Most definitely. And I've had a couple of job interviews like that. It's always not done the A/B test with CVs, but I remember being in an interview before and they've asked me what my strengths and weaknesses are. And I use dyslexia to highlight strengths and weaknesses to answer both questions with one thing. And then getting a grilling for 10 minutes on it and how it will affect me and how it will affect working. And it gets to the point where you're like, don't think I want to work for you.
No, that's exactly it. And I think that's the saddest part, is because when you think, the stigma's already there, and, we're in 2022. People should understand that, you need to have a bit more diversity in everything, really. It's not about
yes.
how it is. It saddens me in the way that, when I came back to the UK, I thought, things would be different, but everything's still the same. So, which is really, it makes me very angry that not enough has been done really to help this. And I've even challenged the dyslexia confidence, when it comes to applications for people, to be guaranteed an interview if you put your dyslexic with the government website. I didn't get any interviews.
Oh, right.
I was just like, I didn't get anything, thank you. So, and then I decided to write to the people that do disability with confidence.
Yeah.
I had a chat with a chap, and he explained that, not everyone gets through. They get a bit more of a higher pile than the average Joe. And I was like, so what? Now you're telling me that they've got to be more selective then, or what? Then they shouldn't have that dyslexia with confidence logo on their company, if that's the case, because I don't feel it was very friendly at all. I felt rejected straight away.
No, I've never used the scheme. But yeah, it's changing, but it's baby steps, isn't it? It's very small steps.
Yeah, you just don't know how long those baby steps are. And it's great that companies have that logo on there. But the thing is, you want to have, as a dyslexic, neurodiverse, you want to be able to have that confidence to go, they're going to give me a chance. But then you get so excited thinking that you have that chance, but then in the end, it just gets, plummet down, that you don't even get an opportunity to even speak your side of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? It's frustrating. And you just want an equal chance to everybody else. Like, you just see the CV, dyslexic. Oh, fair enough. We just have to put maybe some extra software on the computer, whatever they need. Let's see what this person's like, because the rest of the CV is really cool and they look like they fit our company, and maybe we need some neurodiversity in this team. Like, that's where it should be, really.
Right. But as you say, it's still baby steps at early stages in life, sadly. But we just have to just get on with what we can, really. So hence, I've just come to the conclusion and agreement in my head that I don't want to, sometimes, depending on jobs now, I don't want to disclose it sometimes, but then if I feel that maybe the real question is, does it give me an edge by putting that I'm disabled with dyslexia? Does it give me an edge, or does it not? Or does it actually do the complete opposite? That's the $1 million question. We will never know, sadly.
No, we won't. And you could A/B test it, but it's different for every employer. I think it's something that people should disclose, not necessarily at CV level, but at least some point, because as your story has highlighted, being assessed in the workplace and having the right tools in place allows you to thrive rather than sat in a corner struggling with that particular job. And people deserve to thrive in their jobs with whatever neurodiversity they have. So this sort of brings me really to rounding out the end of this podcast. And I have 3 rapid fire questions I ask every guest that's been on this podcast.
Sure.
So you will be the 23rd person I've asked. And they don't need rapid fire answers from you, but we'll give it a go and see what happens. So The first question is, what prejudice have you had about dyslexia that has been proven wrong?
That you're thick.
Yeah.
Straight away on that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And the next one is, if an alien landed and you had to describe dyslexia to them, how would you do it?
Flippin' heck. That's a unique one. I would just do they understand English?
Let's assume they do.
Okay, sure. I wouldn't have expected that as a question, but okay. I'd explain to the alien that it's a very unique, special way of thinking and creativity on top. Not my best answer, but it'll have to do for now.
No worries. And of course, seeing as this is the Dyslexia Life Hacks Show, what is your favourite dyslexia life hack?
My own dyslexia hacks is templates. They go a long way. I don't have any other special ones to share, sadly. But for me, templates have always been the way forward in life, just to make it easier. Even if you're non-dyslexic, it's just something that just helps with time as well, with time management. And that's got me through quite a lot of things. So in my email box, I have about 20 different templates for different things. I know exactly which one I need to use for different scenarios. But if you give it to some random person or my next in line, they'll just be like, what is all this? Because they have no idea what anything means. But I already have it in a folder in a way that I've already structured it in a way that it's just easy. You just need to put the person's name and just the company name. Done. And if you want to make it a bit more closeness of relationship, you just add a bit more information about them or yourself. And that's it. Boom.
Yeah, that's a clever little trick, having it all systemized and templates and just plug and play as when you need them rather than starting from scratch. Yeah, that's kind of quite clever, I think. Okay, well, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on and have a chat with me on this episode of the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, thank you very much for having me on this show. And if anything, I actually want to dedicate this little podcast, this show, to my late cousin Peter Cheung on this occasion, because he has been my inspiration throughout my journey in Singapore, in Asia. And he's been a very good mentor, let alone like a big brother to me.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Peter, and thank you very much for taking the time. And I want to thank everybody else for listening, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. Goodbye for now.